Metal Gear Month on Super Beanie-man Gaming.
Okay, then we get on to Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which for me is almost as good as Metal Gear Solid 1. I think this one is the closest Kojima has come to beating the original. So this one, it's a bit different to the other two. You're no longer playing as Solid Snake anymore, you're playing as Big Boss. Well, it's called Naked Snake at this point. And Big Boss was the person in the Metal Gear games. He was the one who betrayed you, and you sort of killed him in that game. So this is a prequel showing you how Naked Snake became Big Boss. And for those of you who don't know, Solid Snake was cloned from this guy, because this guy was supposedly the greatest soldier that ever lived. For me to go on any more depth of the story would just confuse everybody, so I'm not going to waste my time doing that. But yeah, so this is a prequel set in the, I want to say 60s Cold War era. Yeah, 60s in the Cold War. After the end of World War II, the world was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era known as the Cold War. Snake was say at the start of the game. So yeah, he goes in and he has to rescue this scientist, Sokolov, who knows how to make a Metal Gear. Along the way, he goes in with his partner, the boss, but it turns out that she betrays him, takes the scientist and some nuclear bombs and gives them over to this Russian Colonel Volgin. And she has her own unit. I can't remember what they were called now. I'm going to call them the Foxhound, the Fox unit. Probably not called that, but we're going to call that for now. So that all the villains sort of betray you, and Snake's sort of thrown off this bridge and sort of left for dead. So he kind of fails his first mission, his virtuous mission. And then a few weeks later, once he's healed, he's sent back out to take down the boss who's betrayed her country and stop Volgin from using this new Metal Gear robot to launch these nuclear weapons. And that is the Snake Eater mission. So in this game, it's set in the jungle, so you're no longer really sneaking around industrial areas, going through offices and things like that. So it opens up a new sort of way of playing. It still uses that top-down camera, and it's kind of its weakest bit in this version anyway, because it's hard to see everything. Because in this game you don't get the soliton radar anymore. It's like a motion detector. So it's like a sonar thing that just beeps. And it's not very good to see where people are and where you should be going. But it also introduces survival aspects to the game. So you have to eat food. You have to hunt animals in the jungle to eat, and that increases your stamina. Because if you don't, try and aim a gun and you're just wobbling all over the place, you're sick. You can get poisoned by animals. You have to cure yourself. There's this menu where you have to use a knife to flick out the bullet. You have some disinfectant. You have suture kit and bandages and stuff like that you have to apply. So you're constantly monitoring your health and how you're feeling, kind of thing. And you also have a camouflage system in this game. So you have a face paint and actual camouflage patterns that you can swap out to make yourself blend into your environment more. So say you have this orange red brick one, so if you're in like a building area, the outside, you use that. Whereas if you're going through a jungle area, you might want to use like a split leaf camo, and it tells you how much you blend in percentage wise. So that was a really cool thing. But unfortunately, I don't think it was worked into the game that well, because it's all in a menu. So every time you sort of go into a new area, or you come out of grass and you've got a different floor there, you'd have to pause the game, navigate through this menu and swap out the camouflage and the face paint. So it's a little bit clunky, but it's an amazing game. Kojima learned his lesson with this game, because number 2 was just really intense with the babble and the plot at times, especially towards the end, and there was too many codec conversations and chat. In this one, he was much more reserved. There was a load of codec calls there if you wanted to, but they were optional. You had to go and call them to hear it all. And the story was a lot tighter in it. It was more focused. I think this is up there with number 1's story. Big Boss's journey through this game to become Big Boss is great. Eva, this woman he meets along the way, is she a spy, is she not, is she good or is she bad? The relationship with him that she has is great. There's a scene where, and it's probably one of my favourite scenes in the entire game, where Snake gets absolutely beaten to a pulp by Volgin, and then he gets caught and imprisoned, and he's getting tortured, and he ends up losing his eye, and that's why he's got the eye patch. And then you go through the game then with just one eye, and if you look in first person you can only see the one. It's like dark around the edges. And then there's a scene later on when he meets up with Eva in a cave, and he's trying to catch this butterfly, but he can't catch it anymore because he hasn't got the depth perception. And then Eva sort of hugs him and tells him that she'll be his eyes from now on. It's just great. The boss fights are cool, but the bosses themselves, if it had one sort of negative, they weren't that interesting. You know, the fear, he's kind of like the vamp, and he just shouts for fear, and he's not really got a character. Same with like the Pain, who's the bee guy, and the Sorrow. The Sorrow has a backstory, but he's sort of not there kind of thing. And then there's the Fury, who's got a really cool boss fight on this like jetpack with flames and everything in this dark corridor. But they weren't as memorable, I don't think, as like Raven, Sniper Wolf, Psycho Mantis were in that first game. But it does have a great boss in the form of the boss, and Raven's pretty cool as well. And then Ocelot's in it, a young Ocelot, but he's a bit rubbish in this. He's not that great. He's still learning. Snake, the big boss Snake, kind of teaches him how to use revolvers in this game and not show off as much, and he kind of takes him under his wing weirdly. But yeah, this is a great game. There's an awesome scene with the ladder, and you climb a ladder for about 2 minutes, and it plays the James Bond sort of theme song, which is Snake Eater, and it's just perfect. The ending as well, it just notches it up again and again, like the original, with the Jeep chase and the Rex fight and stuff like that. This one has a bike chase, then you have the Shagohod fight, then you're back with Eva going through this Ico bit where you're taking her along through the woods, and you have this big fight with Boss in this field of white flowers. It's great. And the ending itself as well, there's a huge twist at the end, and it's just perfect. I think if they ever made a movie, I would like them to do a version of this story first, because this is great. Yeah, I think that the main problem is the camera in this. It's just, it kind of makes it hard to see where you're going. But yeah, an amazing game, and I would give this version, Snake Eater, a 9 out of 10, because it's fantastic. Definitely it's my most played one after the first game. Okay, then, I guess then came, where did I put that box? I guess then came Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. So this was like what Substance was to 2, kind of an add-on. It had Metal Gear Online, and Metal Gear Online was absolutely brilliant. The sneaking one where you had to get the duck or whatever it was really cool. Team Sneak. Yeah, it had that. It had a Metal Gear Solid 4 trailer on it. It had a theatre mode. It let you play Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. But best of all, it had a 3D camera which you could put behind Snake, and you could be third person, and it completely changes the game, and it makes it a hell of a lot better and a hell of a lot easier, but in a good way, because you can actually see where you're going. It wasn't really a problem in 2 and 1 because the environments were indoor, and you had a layout in the form of the room, in the form of the radar. But yeah, this just made this game even better, and this version of the game would get a 9.5 off of me, because it is fantastic. Okay, now we're on to some of the portable games. So first up we have Metal Gear Acid and Metal Gear Acid 2. Now these were like a spin-off sort of title. So in Metal Gear Acid 1, a plane has been hijacked by an unknown terrorist, and it's up to Solid Snake to infiltrate the enemy and put an end to this dangerous crisis. You get to experience Metal Gear's renowned stealth action with a new gameplay emphasis on tactical turn-based strategy. So in this one you would use cards, and you'd move around a grid and use cards to fight the enemies. I didn't really like these games. for me, it still felt like Metal Gear, but it wasn't the Metal Gear I wanted on a portable. Same with this one. It's the same sort of thing. Move around a grid, collecting your cards. You can do different moves with the cards. Yeah, I got them because it was Metal Gear, but I haven't really played them that much. Yeah, I would probably give these two 5 out of 10 each because yeah, they're not my thing. If you like the sort of strategy games, card-based games, turn-based games, you might like them, but for me, they're probably some of the weaker ones in the franchise. But they are spin-offs. It's a nice little thing, I guess. So then on PSP, we then eventually had Portable Ops, which was a more traditional sort of looking Metal Gear game. It's kind of similar to Snake Eater in the style. I think you were a big boss again in this. Yeah, following the events of Snake Eater, players can take control of Big Boss, who must build an army and dismantle a nuclear threat united by former Fox members. It was an original story, but I think nowadays it's not canon. It's not considered canon anymore. But yeah, it was third person. You would do mini missions because obviously it was portable, so the missions wouldn't last long. But the main problem was the PSP, whatever it is, PSP just didn't have twin sticks. So trying to move the camera with the face buttons just didn't work. It kind of crippled this game, really. You know, it really held it back from being that great. But if I give them that 5, 6 out of 10, I'll give this a 6.5. It's not bad, but it ain't great. Then they released Portable Ops on the PSP, which was like an enhanced version of it. It had a different mode. You had different characters you could play as. Yeah, but again, it still had that problem with the controls, so I'd give that a 6.5. That was Portable Ops. What do we have now? I guess I could say we could fit in Ghost Babel here, which was a Game Boy Advanced Metal Gear game, and it's really rare to get nowadays, and I've never actually owned it. I have briefly played it on a GBA emulator. It looked kind of cool, very similar to how the original Metal Gears play, but it's kind of, I think it was set around the time of Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, it was a fun little game, but it's not one that you need to play or own, because if you want to own it, you're gonna have to pay a lot of money. Like I said, it's quite expensive on eBay, but I would probably give that. I'd give that a 7 as well, because it's quite decent for a Game Boy Advance game. It's definitely better than those PSP ones. Now we're gonna go on to the PS3 era. So I think that came first, didn't it? So now we have Metal Gear Solid 4. So I believe I've given Metal Gear Solid 1, I would give a 10 out of 10. 2, I think I gave 8, and Subsistence 8.5. 3, I gave a 9, and 3's next version was 9.5. Metal Gear Solid 4, I would give that a 9. I don't think it's as good as 1, and I don't think it's quite as good as 3 either. Again, like in 3, the villains in this are not as memorable as in 1, and they're even worse than the ones in 3. The Beauty and the Beast unit is what I'm on about. They were just generic. They looked cool, but then when you killed them, they would turn into a model, female model, so they looked really pretty. Pause that. Metal Gear Solid 4. Yes. The Beauty and the Beast, they weren't that interesting, and then you had Drebin come along, and he would just... I always remember being in a bus and then having an hour conversation with Drebin about the history of this person, but it's like, I don't care anymore, mate, because I've just killed them, and I want to get on to the next bit, so will you please shut up and take that monkey with you, you know? They were just not very good. The decoy octopus fight was cool. It was kind of made me feel like that's what it would have been in Metal Gear Solid 1. She would camouflage herself and change her appearance in this area that you're in. She had to use the environment and your tools that you had to find her. The sniper wolf type pardon me, the Sniper Wolf type one where it ran around in the Metal Gear Solid 1 area. That was kind of cool, but yeah, they just weren't as good. The best part of this game for me was the Act 2, which was the jungle bit, because it kind of reminded me of Snake Eater. And I also liked the, what would it have been, Act 4, where you go back to Shadow Moses. That's probably one of the greatest bits in this game and in this franchise. The start bit was kind of like a Middle Eastern town, and it kind of felt a bit Call of Duty. It was still a cool area to go through because it was different. I'd say one thing about this game was different. For me, it felt like each act was like a different Metal Gear. You know, the Snake Eater bit was that act with the jungle. You had a more traditional indoors one after it. There was the European city, which was a bit of a rubbish act, to be fair, actually. That one really felt like filler. There wasn't much to it. You have to follow a guard through this really long sequence through a village town. And that bit wasn't very good. It felt like they cut a lot of stuff out there. But it did have a cool bike chase at the end. And the fight with, I want to say Raven, something Raven. It's been a while. And he's flying through around this clock tower thing. It was really cool. That was a cool sniper fight because it was different to what you normally do. Yeah, kind of disappointing. I think David Hayter in this one was too hammy in his voice. He was trying to be really old because Snake's aged rapidly now due to nanomachines. So he's kind of like really gravelly, and it's kind of a bit like, oh please, just tone it down a bit. Meryl's also back in this, so the canon ending from the first game was the one where you save her, whereas I've always preferred the one where you don't, because I think that makes Snake a better character. But hey ho. This also had a Metal Gear Online, which was even better than the one in Snake Eater. It was tons of fun, but Konami fucked it up by making you have a Konami ID, which was a really pain in the arse thing to get and set up. So I think that put a lot of people off playing it online. But once you got through that pain in the arse setup, it was great. It was so good. Team Sneak was top notch, and it was so much fun. You had these catapult things that you could jump on, and it would fling you up onto rooftops. And it was so cool. You could drop books and things to like get people. It was really cool. It was really like, for people who like being really crafty, it was great. This one also improved controls. They got a guy called Ryan Patton, an American, in to help modernise it to an American standard. And it kind of improved bits and kind of ruined others. I think he was probably responsible for the amount of weapons in the game. I preferred the originals where you had like a pistol, a machine gun, a missile launcher, maybe a shotgun. That was about it. In this one you have so many different types of pistols, machine guns, everything. You know, you're constantly picking up different weapons, and you can sell them to this Drebin guy who I mentioned earlier. He's like the black market one, and you get credits, and you can buy other things. I don't really feel like that bit was necessary. I always used to stick to the same sort of ones. It also improved something that Snake Eater had, the camouflage system. So now, instead of going through menus, you could just lie on the floor, and if you stay still for a bit, or you lean up a wall and stay still, your suit would automatically take that pattern of whatever surface you were on. So it was a much easier and smarter way of doing it. It really improved the game. There's the bits in the jungle bit where you're having to track someone, and you have to try and follow the footprints. And go through that with your stealth suit, not your stealth suit, your camouflage suit's really cool. You can sneak right up to the unit of soldiers without them noticing if you've got the right camo. It had a lot of long cutscenes as well. They sort of went back to the Metal Gear 2 amount of cutscenes. Some of them are like hours long, but when I watched it and played it at the time, I didn't notice. The one at the waterfront with the boats and Ocelot going like that was fucking fantastic, man. What a cutscene. Brilliant. And I didn't feel like it was an hour long. Playing it again and again, it's probably a bit crap because you're going, come on, but the first time through, it's amazing. What else? I didn't really like the Johnny and Meryl bit. I felt that was really cheesy, especially when they're fighting together at the end and he proposes. That was just cringy as hell. My main complaints would be the bosses aren't that great, but the Liquid and Snake Liquid Ocelot Snake relationship is really good, and that's what you're sort of here for, because this is the game that sort of wraps the series up. This is the end point of the series. Even though there's been games after, this is where the story actually ends with Solid Snake. Yeah, it's kind of like a best of, really. It does do different acts for different types of Metal Gear games that have come before it. The main disappointing act, though, even though Act 3 was kind of filler and you didn't really do much, would have been the final act where you jump on Arsenal Gear, because it's so goddamn short. That was the act where I thought, yes, it's going to be like Metal Gear 1 now. You're going to be sneaking through a base, a stronghold, an industrial area, and you kind of do, but very briefly. You start off, you go through a few rooms, then I think you get to the Psycho Mantis fight, which is kind of cool, but not as good as the original. And then I think that's it. Then you go through the corridor, don't you? Crawling through the microwave, and that's it. It's really, it feels like they've run out of time with this game, and they kind of rushed it at the end. But visually, audio-wise, this game is amazing. And this is like pushing the PS3 to its limits, and it came out pretty much early on. I bought the PS3 for this game, and it still looks amazing today. And I'm shocked that this hasn't been remastered on PS4, because this is one of the few games that is truly exclusive to PS3, and what an amazing game. Massive install though, but it had a really cool install screen with Snake doing his little cigarette. Brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot of good bits in the game, but it's not as tightly written as the others. The end fight is spectacular though, as is the act where you go back to Shadow Moses. You finally get to jump in Metal Gear Rex and pilot that, and you have this great mech fight with Ocelot in Metal Gear Ray. They bring back Raiden in this as well, and he tries really hard to make him cool, so he's turned him into the cyborg ninja, but he's still a bit cheesy. It even rained on the day I was born, he says at one point, which Snake then says something like, "You were the lightning that rained. You can still shine through the darkness." So there's a lot of cheesy bits, but there's also some cool Kojima bits in it as well. What else? The microwave bit at the end is cool, crawling through that and seeing Snake slowly get burned alive is really touching. The fight with Liquid at the end on the top of Arsenal Gear is great. The way it celebrates the history. Let's play. I'll stop saying. Celebrates the series history by changing the music, the health bars, and the way they fight with each step of the battle was great. And the end itself is really cool. There's a twist at the end, which won't spoil, but that was really unexpected, and it's a great way for it to end. Snake goes off. We don't know what happens after that, but I think that's how it should stay, because it's up to you to think of what you would like it to be. Yeah, what a great game, but not as good as 1 and 3. And there isn't really any extras with it either, and it never had a subsistence type version either, so it's pretty much just the story and the Metal Gear Online. But yeah, it's definitely great. It has a sort of, I think this is where it got it perfect in terms of wide linear. So it's very much a linear game, but the areas are wider now, so it's more open for you to come across it in multiple ways, and sometimes there's maybe 1 or 2 exits. But it's not a massive open world. I think that works in its favour, and I think that's where Metal Gear Solid should have stayed with that style. But unfortunately it didn't, and that's for me where it goes drastically downhill. But before we get to that, there's also Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, which done Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 again, but they were the Substance C versions but without certain bits. And there's also Peace Walker on there as well, which was probably the best handheld portable game, because you had 2 sticks on the Vita and you could control it better. I didn't play much of it. It was very much a short 2-3 minute mission, then some 2D cutscenes. It was very cool. You had to build your army in that one, I think, as well. But it wasn't for me. It wasn't the Metal Gear I wanted. But it's still, I can see it's a good game, and I'd probably give that an 8 out of 10. And then the HD collection, I'm not going to bother reviewing that because all the games are there individually. There was also, before we go on to the PS4's games, there's also a spin-off called Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which was Raiden's hack and slash game. I think it was made by Platinum Games, sort of set after Metal Gear 4 in the world that that game had. Its main gimmick was that you could cut everything up with your sword, but when the game came out, you couldn't actually do that with everything. And it's okay. It's not for me though. I would give it probably a 5 because I just didn't like it. It wasn't Metal Gear. I would have much rather Kojima's original idea, where it filled in the blanks of Metal Gear 4. So you saw what happened to him after 2, him getting captured and turned into a ninja, and then him trying to find his kid. That's what I would have rather saw, but we didn't. Yeah, that's all I've got to say really on Rising. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Then we have the biggest disappointment of the franchise for me so far, Metal Gear Solid 5, or should I say Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, and then the other half of the game, Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain. So straight away, the first thing you can see, they split the game into 2, which was absolute bullshit. Imagine the tanker section and then the big shell section from Metal Gear Solid 2 in 2 separate games. That's kind of what you got here. This is the prologue, the first part of it, the first hour or so, and then this is the actual game. And they split it into 2, just to make more money, which was utter bullshit. The next thing I don't like, it's open world, and it's just fucking awful, because it's not fully open, because you're stuck in a mission area, and if you run outside of that, you fail, and that just defeats the purpose for me of an open world. If I can go anywhere, then I should be able to go anywhere in the mission. You know, there was one point in this one, Phantom Pain, where some enemies are coming over a bridge, and I've got to stealth. The game wants me to stealth past them, but I could easily go up this hill and go around them, but I failed the mission because I went out of the area. It's just, nah, I didn't complete this, and I barely touched that. I did it, but it's not very long anyway. I hate them. I absolutely hate them. I don't think they're Metal Gear games. You can just sprint. You can sprint everywhere. You can carry people on your back and you can still sprint. They're just not Metal Gear. The story's not there either. There's not many cutscenes. They also shat on David Hayter, who voiced Solid Snake in all the other games, and they got in Kiefer Sutherland, who didn't do a very good job in my opinion. Yeah, I don't like them. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried to play them again and again, and every time I go on them, I just hate them. Just the way it controls, the way you sprint, it's not Metal Gear anymore at this point for me. The open world, I think they should have just kept it like 4, have it as wide linear, where you can explore a wide area, but you still sort of funnel down in a set path. Having side missions in a Metal Gear game when you're trying to do a mission, it just ruins it. I prefer the Metal Gear games where you start at point A and you've got to get to point B, and that's the whole game, this whole journey across this base. You know, you always start on the outskirts of a base and you have to work your way through to the Metal Gear, whereas this, you're in like a Middle Eastern desert-y sort of place, and you're just going around point to point doing missions and side missions, and it's shit. It's just shit. I'm sorry, I know people are fans of these two, but for me, I don't like them. I do not like them. They're not my Metal Gear. And if this was where the franchise was going to carry on going, I probably wouldn't buy them. I didn't want to buy these. I only ended up getting them because people brought them me for Christmas. You know, I was the whole no David Hayter, no sale kind of thing. They're just not Metal Gear. I've seen the ending to it because I watched it online because I didn't want to play it, and I think the twist is a bit daft, and they also didn't finish the fucking game because there's missions that you don't get to do, and it also repeats missions halfway through the game, which is shit as well. So these two are the stinkers for me. I would give this Ground Zeroes a 2 out of 10 because as a £30 game, £30 game, I don't think it's worth it. And I'd give this probably a 3 out of 10 because I really don't like them. I can see that they're well-made games, don't get me wrong. That's probably why it's getting the 3 points. But for me, it's just not Metal Gear. Not Metal Gear at all. And then we have one last game which I don't even own, because after Phantom Pain I refuse to get any Metal Gear games that are like that, and that is Metal Gear Survive, which reused the map from that but added fog and made it a bit darker, and then added zombies for some reason. For me, the game that the studio makes after losing Hideo Kojima should be the game they put their all into. You know, the game where they work as hard as they can to prove that Metal Gear can survive without Hideo Kojima, and that they can do something themselves, that they are talented enough, which I'm sure they are, to have made a great game. But I think Kojima just leaving threw Konami off, and Konami just wanted to ruin it, and they released Survive. You know, they rushed this out. I believe they forced Kojima Productions to make this, and it just looks awful. Even having paywalls for save slots, I just think scummy. The whole game is just scummy, and it's a really, really bad way to end a franchise that has games like this. Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Snake Eater, you know, Portable Ops, such great classic games, and we end on stinkers like this and Survive. It's a shame, and I hope one day Metal Gear comes back. Maybe Sony will buy it. That would be my greatest wish, that Sony buys it outright and just redoes it. Or maybe Konami will remake this properly. Who knows? Or maybe we'll get remakes of Metal Gear. I don't know what they're going to do with it. The last thing they done was a pachinko machine. So yeah, Metal Gear sort of ends there, unfortunately. And yeah, I think that's where my really long series review is going to end. I apologise for the endless babble at times, but I hope you've enjoyed this chat. It's a different way for me to do a review, less scripted, less of the comedy sort of skits in it. It's more of just a guy talking about games and why he likes them and why he doesn't. So yeah, let me know what you think of this. But I will see you soon for a Metal Gear Solid normal review coming up later on in Metal Gear Solid month. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.